Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. We are on to week 9, which is crazy to think about. We have 6 undefeated teams left. We have a 5-man Heisman race. We have 5 teams who have been ranked for the first time in 15 years. We have 8 gajillion coaches on the hot seat and or fired. And we have a lot to unpack and a lot to bet on today. We're going to get right into it. We're going to go through the Power 4 conferences. We'll give you our best bets of the entire slate, and we'll give you some underdogs as well. And we will waste no time doing so. So with that said, let's bring in the real stars of the show here. Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, welcome to week 9. Emory, how do you feel about that?
Crazy. You blink and you already miss college football season is whizzing on by.
Mike, how are we feeling?
Feeling great, Ken. Doesn't necessarily feel like the biggest weekend in college football. It's a nice little break after having a huge week last week. Another big week on deck, though. So, yeah, it is a little crazy that we're to week 9 already, though. Feels like maybe week 5 or 6 to me.
It is crazy. Well, maybe not the biggest slate. We do have 3 ranked-on-ranked games this week, all in the SEC, where it just means more. These are the glory days that we have to remind ourselves of. We're mid-October, almost November. We can't take these days for granted. We have the sports equinox coming up on Monday as well, but that's neither here or there. Let's get into the ACC. We're going to start there. We're going to start with this Ponies team. SMU -3.5 on the road versus Wake Forest. Interesting situation. You see the Ponies upset Clemson here, a spot that I thought they were really strong in. I believe I gave out SMU last week as well. You have Wake Forest coming off a bye. Interesting spot here, kind of a tricky matchup. Emory, which way are you leaning on this?
I like SMU. I still have some questions about Wake Forest's defense and the way that SMU has played offensively with Kevin Jennings throwing the football and doing that more so than being that dual threat. So I'm still waiting for him to unleash that. Maybe that's this game, but I like the fact that they're playing balanced. He got a big win last weekend. So I'm going to like SMU here in this road spot against the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, I'll go next on this. In our SportsLine model, we make this a 12-point victory for them. We like them versus SMU. We always like them. I will say this Wake Forest team, outside of their bye, they're coming off back-to-back games versus teams that fired their coach. Like, this is probably going to be kind of a punch in the gut of level of competition that we're going to see. You see the SMU running back room looking better, too, with Chris Johnson Jr. Like, these guys are starting to step it up. And again, Wake Forest just feels like not that intimidating of a team for this team that just, again, beat up on Clemson. Mike, curious to see if you're on the same road as us.
Yeah, I'm on the same side here. SMU, and while I don't make it as big as you guys do, Ken's at 12, I do make the number 6.5, though, which is still a pretty significant road favorite. And I can definitely get to laying the number here when you're talking about 3.5. So I'm really kind of surprised you're not seeing at least 4.5, with 4 being such a key number there. As far as the difficult environment, it's not a particularly difficult environment to march into Wake Forest and play a college football game like this. And then I look at SMU, and this is one of the teams that I think might be a little better than their record indicates. You saw them pick up that win over Clemson, the overtime loss early to Baylor in week 1, could have very easily gone the other way in that one. And then they lost to TCU, giving up 35 in that game. We know TCU is a team that can score offensively. So I think that SMU may not be properly rated here and should be, again, closer to 6.5.
Yeah, I'd argue this is a team that could be undefeated. Like, if a few different cards fall their way, this is still a really good, talented team. Probably not alive to win the ACC, but let's talk about a team who is a little bit in that ACC conversation right now with Pitt. Pitt is hosting NC State this weekend. 6.5-point home favorites here. They've won their last 3. They've covered their last 3. They welcome in NC State, who's kind of just been literally a 500 team, a pretty average team here. We're close to that touchdown spread here. Mike, which way are you going to lean?
I'm going to lean NC State. This one is definitely not making my card. I set the number 5.5, so just 6 being a key number would be where I would be leaning. As far as these two teams, I think they're closer to even than this line indicates. You know, you can consider maybe 3.5, up to 4 in certain environments for a home field advantage. That's kind of along the lines of where I was. I think that NC State, while they're not a team that's, overpowering really in any way, they're a solid team across the board. I just think these games ultimately become competitive one-score games here. So plus 6.5 is where I would be leaning on this one.
Yeah, and you see the money go that way because we moved over that key number of 7.5 where this opened with Pitt. Emory, I see you're leaning the same way here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of these 1 point victories to either side. So I'm going to take NC State in the points here. Reason being, I love their offense. Hollywood Smothers and also what you get out of CJ Bailey. Those two guys give NC State a puncher's chance offensively. And Pitt doesn't have that dominant defense. They will give up some points. So I can see this one going back and forth. So to Mike's point, 6.5 points in this type of game with these two teams, I think that's way too many. So I would take NC State in the points here.
Interesting. I'm going to play for the other side here. I like Pitt minus the 6.5, and it comes down to home and road splits. I think if this was a neutral site game, I'd probably lean more towards NC State, but this NC State defense on the road, their run D is so bad. And that's against bad teams too. That's not just some, weird stat that doesn't make sense. Like, they genuinely are a bad defense on the road, and Pitt at home and their run D has been phenomenal as well. Their run offense has been going pretty well for them too. So if you just look specifically at home and road splits for this team, and Pitt's 5-2 against the spread so far in their last 7. I think Pitt in a home spot, also looking again to play for the conference championship, to make an appearance potentially, putting up style points. I think they cover the 6.5 here. All right, we warmed up with some ACC. We're going to get into some more. We're going to hit the Big Ten next. But before we get there, if you want all the picks from all of us and all of our crew, you can watch us on the Early Edge, and you can get 60% off the annual plan on SportsLine using the promo code WINNERS. Again, head to sportsline.com/join. Use the promo code WINNERS, all caps, to get 60% off and get all of our picks on every single sport. Up next, we are talking Big Ten with Emory and Mike. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show presented by BetMGM. Mackenzie Brooks here, Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, giving you the best bets for all these Power 4 games and beyond such. Let's go to the Big Ten, guys. Let's talk about Illinois headed to Washington. Washington minus 4.5 at home. They're coming off that loss at Michigan, which was a little bit embarrassing, so maybe comeback spot. Illinois coming off a bye. Some interesting stats we have. Illinois 7-0 against the spread so far versus unranked teams, and Washington 0-4 straight up and against the spread in their last 4 ranked matchups. So that kind of tells you want to lean one way over the other potentially, but Emory, I'll let you make the case.
I like Washington in this one. I can't trust Illinois' defense against the run. And Jonah Coleman is an NFL back. This is someone that people need to start talking more about, because I think he's a plug-and-play guy at the next level, which means he should have a field day against this Illini defense. I just like the fact that their offense has shown up outside of last week to Michigan, but that's a much better defense in Michigan than they'll face here versus the Illini. So I can trust Washington to cover the spread.
Well, also, you look at Washington at home. I mean, I know this isn't necessarily a spread number, but they're just dominant outside of Ohio State. I mean, they literally do not lose at home, which is always promising to see. I'm looking at this schedule too, and this looks like a win you want. You want to take the home wins while you can. Obviously, outside of playoff contention now at this point, I think they're 18-1 right now, but still things to play for, still pride to play for. I'm actually going to look at Michigan in that first half, minus the 2.5. I like the idea that they're up by a field goal in that gauntlet of a home environment that they have, and I hope Illinois just starts out a little bit slow here. So again, I lean towards that way as well. I'm going to isolate that first half here, make my money, and get out. Mike, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I like that isolation on the first half. I like Emory, though. I'm going to be on the Washington side. It's certainly a bounce back opportunity. We talked on this show actually last week about how much of a difficult environment that was going to be, traveling to Michigan for an early kickoff. That was a 9 a.m. body clock kickoff for this Washington team in that environment. Just these things did not go well from the start, but I will point to them still defensively. This is still the defensive team that held Ohio State in that tough environment to just 24 points. I think that they're going to have similar success on that end against Illinois. As Emory mentioned, the ground game, I think it's a big bounce back opportunity for them. I set the number at 6 here, and I've seen others having this thing up 7 or 8. So for me, -5 or -4.5, that's where I'd be leaning here with Washington.
Yeah, a big home field advantage spot. Honestly, if they had won that game in Michigan, I wouldn't like this as much. But the fact that this is a get right spot, just college football, the way that works, I do like this for them. Let's move to another game in the Big Ten, Minnesota at Iowa. Iowa 8.5-point home favorites here. Both these teams 3-1 in the conference thus far. You look at Minnesota coming off that major win against number 25 at the time, Nebraska. Do we think this is a letdown spot, Mike, or is this a spot where we say, hey, Minnesota might actually be that good?
I think they may be good enough. And the thing that you got to love when you see a 39.5-point total in Iowa on the other side, good enough to cover 8.5, maybe simply scoring a touchdown in this game, right? So when I look at this particular spot with Minnesota, I think that what we saw against Nebraska was real. I think that they're actually a good team defensively at this level. I'm not putting them up and saying they're a good team in the Big Ten when they have to play Ohio State or Oregon or any of those top tier programs. They are not. But against Iowa in this environment, it's kind of like a baseball game, Ken's, in terms of just run prevention, just preventing points here. I think that they can fall their way in to a cover here at 8.5. 8.5 on a 39.5 is so much different than 8.5 at a 50 or 55-point total. Give me the points here with Minnesota.
Yeah, I remember two seasons ago when I started here, I think Iowa was like 22.5-point favorites for some team. And I said, how can you cover a 22.5-point spread if you can't score 22 points yourself? Like, that's the problem. Now, obviously, this Iowa offense has come miles from that. I do still think it's very hard to cover that big of a number, again, with a total that low and being Iowa football in general. Emory, would you agree with that?
Totally, because at the end of the day, you look at how Minnesota played Nebraska in the trenches. That, to me, was so impressive. How they moved Nebraska off the spot. They created so many explosives in a run game that just dominated Nebraska up front. And Iowa is built schematically like Nebraska in the trenches, so Minnesota can win that game. Let's even call that one a push, right? So now you look outside on the edges. That's where Minnesota has the edge. At quarterback, at running back, at wide receiver, they'll find enough plays to cover the spread, if not win outright. So I like the Golden Gophers here against Iowa, who is struggling right now, again, because they're banged up at quarterback. Not because they don't have talent, but they're banged up, which will curtail their offensive efforts altogether. So I like Minnesota to cover the spread, but I will sprinkle some on the money line here as well.
Oh, okay. I have one more way to look at this, potentially a gross way to look at it, but I do feel confident in it. Minnesota's team total sitting at 14.5. And that I understand that Iowa is a awesome defense and they're technically allowing opponents to under 15 points a game right now. That is so skewed by playing UMass, and that is so skewed by playing Wisconsin and shutting them out. I was boots on ground at Wisconsin last week. I will tell you, I'm not giving anyone flowers for holding that team to no points. That was abysmal football, and I don't think anyone should be rewarded for shutting that team out. So with that said, I look at games against teams with a pulse. They're allowing over this number to literally everybody else. So do I think Minnesota offense is the best in sliced bread? Absolutely not. But do I think that this Iowa defense is on paper looking a little better than they really are against competitive teams? I do. So I think 14.5, 2 touchdowns and a field goal is not crazy to ask of this team. So just another way to look and back Minnesota here. Let's move on to an in-state rivalry, Michigan State versus Michigan. Michigan on the road, 14.5-point road favorites, over under sitting at 47.5. Now, Michigan, 6-2 against the spread as double-digit road favorites in their last 8. Michigan State, 0-4 against the spread at home this season, 0-5 against the spread their last 5 home-ranked opponents. So that is telling us one side of the story that I'm probably going to go with. But Mike, I'm going to start with you on that.
Yeah, I'm going to shorten the game. I like the spot here in a rivalry game like this, on the road, a game that Michigan still cares about for sure. And they're ranked 25th in the country still. I think they come in and they march down the field and score an opening quarter touchdown. And I don't think Michigan State gets on the board in the first quarter. But if they do, I think it's a field goal. The fact that I can get this at 3.5 at plus 106, you can look and find on your sports book and look for other ways to bet Michigan, whether it be first quarter team total over, or whatever it may be on an opening drive. But I think Michigan has success in the first quarter here, ultimately leading this thing 7-0, 7-3. Give me the first quarter for Michigan minus 3.5, again at plus 106.
Yeah, I looked at that. I even looked at just the first half too, because the 14.5, you just know you can get absolutely burnt by that. But we have them winning in our model by like 20 plus here. I just think they're going to run all over Michigan State, and just the matchup for Michigan's defense in general, on top of the fact that Michigan very far outside the door, but knocking ish on the door of the college football playoff. Putting up style points is something I always like to look at, as you guys know. I do like the first quarter play. I think I'm willing to lay the 14.5. Emory, we're looking at, I think, our first totals of the segment so far.
Yeah, I like the over in this game. I think this game, from a score perspective, will look a lot like that New Mexico game where they won, what, 34-17. The game means some to Michigan, means a lot to Michigan State. So I expect the fireworks to come out in that first quarter. I'm talking about trick plays, all kind of influence type offensive, situations that we'll see from Michigan State to try to get their, best punch out there first, try to get on the scoreboard first. But then Michigan just too good, too strong, deep roster, deep talent. They'll win this ball game and cover that spread. But man, I like this one to go over. Again, 34-17, which helps us cash this over easily.
Yeah, this offense just continues to look better and better week in and week out here. I do like Michigan a lot. Curious because there's a conversation kind of the college football playoff just really quick, and 3 teams or 4 teams, and you see Penn State be disappointing, brings them back down to 3. Mike, do you think there's any version of the story at this point where we maybe see 4 Big Ten teams in the playoff?
Man, that's so tough. I'm going to lean towards no at this point. We know the SEC bias, especially what Emory is always rooting for to come true. I just think that we're going to see all those little SEC teams just find their way in here.
I've been saying that. Just had to hear it come out of someone else's mouth that wasn't mine. On that note, I'm going to get us out of this segment before Emory Hunt can argue with me. On the other side, we are talking some Big 12. Just absolute chaos here. You never know what's going to happen in the Big 12. Don't lie to yourself. We'll see you on the other side, but we'll figure out how to make some money on it. Welcome back to the College Football Pick Show on Early Edge, presented by BetMGM. Mackenzie Brooks here, Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, making our way through the conferences. We have made our way to the Big 12, Mike McClure land. Kansas State at Kansas, the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas 3-point favorites at home here. None of these teams have really been that strong against the spread, over-under leans necessarily this season. This is, however, one of the longest rivalries in college football. We're looking at right here with the Governor's Cup. Kansas State looking for their 17th consecutive Governor's Cup, which is crazy to think. Mike, do you think they can get number 18?
Can they? Yes. Will they? I don't know here, Ken. I think this game's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be back and forth. This is a spot where you look at Kansas State. They underperformed a little bit to start the season, lost a lot of close games. Some of them they should not have been close and shouldn't have lost, but they did. The sentiment got a little low on that team, and you watched them go out and win a couple games recently or be very competitive in those games. I think that's what you get here as well. I think you get points. I'm going over 56.5. I think both teams touch 30 in this game. I ultimately just think it's a back and forth. The offenses are so far ahead of the defenses here. You see it all the time, really, in the Big 12, and I think this is a perfect example. Now the rivalry element of it, you bring out the creativity in both of the offensive coordinators. That is where the points are going to come from here. Let's go over 56.5.
Yeah, I agree with the over here. I was leaning towards taking Kansas State, and then I realized I don't want to put myself through that. Points are always the answer. Both of these teams just letting points fly. I think combined, these teams in the last 6 games are 5-1 to the over. I don't anticipate anything different here in this game that we're going to see, so I'm in on the over 56.5 as well. Emory, you do have a side for us today.
I like Kansas in this one. I agree with Mike that this one is going to go over the total, and also it's going to be back and forth. But when I look at the 2 quarterbacks in this matchup, I like how Jalen Daniels has played all season long. He's been actually really doggone good. He's played probably his best season collectively in his 15-year Kansas career. So when you look at how he's doing in terms of the red zone, how he's mitigating the mistakes, he's also doing a good job on third downs. And so he's doing exactly what you want your quarterback to do. And because he's been so consistent, I can trust him a little bit more so than I can Avery Johnson on the other side. I know they lost a couple weeks ago to Texas Tech, but at the end of the day, this is a very good offense, very good quarterback. I like them. And this is a great number, by the way. 3 points. I can push at worst, but I definitely like them to cover.
Yeah. For what it's worth, because I was thinking about giving out Kansas State. They have covered their last 3. I'm not giving that out because I don't hate myself. But if I were, that is a trend worth noting. Let's move on to another game, a little bit more exciting here with number 11, BYU, undefeated so far. And as an underdog, which they are against Iowa State, who's unranked, we know what those trends typically mean. As an underdog, BYU is 8-1 against the spread in their last 9, 6-1 straight up. You have Iowa State coming off a bye, but before that, 2 losses, and you have BYU, who just beat Utah. 2 claps for them here. Interesting spot. I was definitely loving BYU last week. I think I'd lean Iowa State this week, but Emory, make the case for BYU.
If you love BYU last week in a terrific rivalry game spot, you have to love them this week against Iowa State. Iowa State has been disappointing, to be completely honest. They were looking like they were going to represent the Big 12 in the postseason this upcoming year based on how they started the year and how they were playing and how they were winning those games. Then they suffered that 2-game losing streak. I know the bye week came at a great time, but man, you come out of that bye facing a red-hot BYU squad that's good along the line of scrimmage, in the trenches, up front, all of those things that you love to see from a football team. This is BYU, and they're getting great play from their freshman quarterback out there on the field. So I think this is a bad spot for Iowa State. The Cougars have done it on offense. They've done it with finding the explosive plays, and I think they'll do it again, taking them plus the points and also sprinkling some on the money line because, again, we saw this last week with Georgia Tech and Duke. The wrong team here is favored.
Yeah, that's that weird thing. You have ranked teams going into enemy territory and they're underdogs to these unranked teams like Iowa State. We didn't see that trend come home with Duke last weekend. Maybe it comes home this weekend, but Mike, it seems like you do not believe in that trend either.
Yeah, I don't care about the trend generally. When I look at the teams, Iowa State, I think they could and maybe should be a 4-loss team right now. They are not anywhere remotely close to where they were before. They escaped that Ireland game with a 3-point win over Kansas State, who could not get out of their own way, didn't play with Dylan Edwards in that game, got hurt on the first kickoff. Just all the things. They lost that game. They barely beat Arkansas State 24-16, a field goal win over Iowa 16-13. Just a lot of close calls. And you see what happens when the close calls don't go their way. You lose games like that one to Colorado the last time out. That's 2 in a row here. I get that it's a bye week. I get that it's at home. BYU, though, to me, legitimate top 15 offense. And I say legitimate top 15, you're like, well, yeah, they're ranked 11th. But when I look at the metrics in terms of EPA per play, I have them as a top 15 offense in college football. And that doesn't always happen when you have schools like this that just keep winning and find their way into the rankings. So I think they're legit. I think they deserve to be there. I could make this game a pick 'em in this particular environment, but 3.5, give me BYU.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go Iowa State. I don't think I know, because this is what happens in the Big 12. Just when we think we have them figured out, they're just going to take a left on us. And I'm going to follow the weird situations going on. There's no way we get an obvious undefeated Big 12 team and they go to the Big 12 championship and we get the one at-large bid and this isn't messy. This is going to be messy. It always is. And I'm going to put my money on it this time around. Our model does like Iowa State in this game, which is weird because we are typically on BYU. So I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust that there's nothing trustworthy about the Big 12. So you can go with the numbers that make sense with the boys, and I commend them for that. But this is a vibes play for Ken's right now. I got to root for the chaos because chaos is what we get with this conference, quite frankly. Speaking of chaos and speaking of parity, up next, we are headed to the SEC where it just means more. 3 ranked on ranked matchups. We get them noon through nighttime. It's going to be a treat, and we are going to make money on it. Stick around on the early edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show on CBS Sports Network, presented by BetMGM. Mackenzie Brooks here, Emory Hunt, Mike McClure. We're moving down south. We're moving to the SEC. 3 big games to talk about this weekend. We're going to start with number 13, Ole Miss, still on the road, versus 8, Oklahoma here. Now, this is an interesting situation to be in because obviously we're just watching Lane Kiffin week after week, season after season almost, 1-6 straight up and 1-6 against the spread on the road versus ranked teams. Georgia Bulldogs, shout out the Dogs, get it done at home. And I was watching that game on my phone on the sideline of this Wisconsin-Ohio State game while I'm sweating out Wisconsin. Team total over 7.5, a situation I never want to be in again. We're going to move on from that. And we're going to talk about this game here because Ole Miss catching 4.5 point dogs on the road versus Oklahoma. I don't really know how I feel about that. Emory, curious how you feel.
It pays to be a great tweeter because it takes the smoke off Lane Kiffin not winning no big games, right? Because we all just love how he tweets and how he goes about social media. This is a bad spot for them and this football squad because they should have got the game last week against Georgia, but Georgia showed that the Ole Miss defense is not what you thought it was going to be. They couldn't get any stops against Georgia, and the one stop Georgia got gave them enough cushion to cover that spread against Ole Miss. In this game, they're facing an elite defense in Oklahoma, one that does do a great job of keeping their eyes on their luggage. They tackle rather well in the open field. This one, to me, screams under. I feel like we'll see some points more so on the Oklahoma side, but not a lot to where we're going to see, oh, my God, Ole Miss is just scoring 40 points in this contest. Take the under here. I like Ole Miss's offense, but I love Oklahoma's defense.
All right, fair enough. I'm in on unders here. I can't help but be shocked by the 4.5. I think that number's a little large. I think more of just a principal play of they probably almost wouldn't be that big of dogs if they didn't blow the lead, the 9-point lead in the second half they had against Georgia. I'm kind of in on taking the plus 4.5 here. I think this could be a field goal loss, but I also think at some point Lane Kiffin will figure out how to win on the road versus ranked teams. Mike, do you agree with that?
I do, yeah. And you've seen the market actually respond, Ken's, up to 5.5 in a few spots. I get it. Five's not terribly key number in college football. But still, with these two teams in this style of play, I'll take any point you'll give me in that particular setup. And it's going to be Ole Miss plus 5.5. And again, you have to realize that you're not asking them to win the game on the field. There's a very realistic scenario that they come up just short again in this particular spot. Oklahoma, number one defense in college football. I don't even think it's a question or it's close. I think they have the best defensive unit. I'm questioning their offensive unit, though. They really haven't been able to score offensively. You talk about a team like Auburn. They didn't get past 24 points in that game, didn't get past 24 against Michigan. They put up 6 against the Texas Longhorns in that neutral site game. To me, this is a spot where I think the one thing Ole Miss can do offensively is the tempo. They have the tempo. They bring the tempo. That can throw any defense off for a moment that creates one big play. I think that points will be at a premium here, which is why I think the 4.5 and 5.5 are considerably more valuable than some of these other games. So yeah, I like Ole Miss here, not calling them to win outright. I don't know that they're going to really even threaten and, have a lead in this game, but I think that they can cover this number here, just considering the game environment itself.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one, and I'm very excited for this game as well. The fact that we get this in a noon slate, too, is going to be very, very fun. Good way to start off the Saturday slate. Let's move down the Saturday slate. Number 15, Missouri, headed to number 10, Vandy, which is just crazy to even be saying. Vandy 2.5-point favorites at home, over under 52.5. Vandy 6-2 against the spread versus ranked teams in their last 8, 5-2 this year. Very interesting spot for them. Is it time to take Vanderbilt football seriously, Emory?
Absolutely. They're here for a reason. And when you look at how Diego Pavia has played so far this season, juxtaposed to last year when it was a cool story, but this year he's actually playing really great football. And you look at what Bo Perbula had did last week against Auburn. Man, Missouri tried to give these dudes a game 5 times. And Auburn's like, no, you guys got it. You guys can win this one. We don't want it. So Vanderbilt's going to go out here and try to make a statement because there's still people that don't believe in Vanderbilt being a top 10 program, and they don't want to see Vanderbilt in the playoffs because they're not a brand name team. But this team is playing great on both sides of the ball. They've been consistent. They're well coached. They're disciplined. They don't beat themselves. They'll take care of business here against the Tigers.
Fair enough. I believe in this Vanderbilt offense. I don't think I'm still bought in on the defense yet. I think that we can get an over in this game. Over 52.5 is probably my favorite play. Again, I think this Vanderbilt team will put points up on you, but they will also allow you to score too. I believe we got to 57 with this matchup in their most previous 2. So again, could we see ourselves in a shootout situation with this Vanderbilt team like we've seen before, potentially? And I think 52.5 is a pretty solid number for us here. So I'm on the over. Emory's on Vandy. Mike, I think you're just going to the other side here.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Missouri here. Look, I liked Vanderbilt. I was afraid to bet LSU against Vanderbilt last week. I ultimately landed on the team total, and that was the only bet that would have won had you backed LSU. So to me, it's kind of the same idea here. Vanderbilt is awesome offensively. I am not convinced on the defensive side of the football. That is the issue for me. I think Missouri is going to continue to be able to move the football and pick up that 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 over and over in this matchup, which makes Diego Pavia and company have to be perfect. We know Diego Pavia probably will. I think it's going to be a tight game on both sides, but I think it's a slight overreaction now in the market. I do make these teams both top 15 in college football, though, so deserve to be where they're at. Going to be a good one. I lean to the Missouri side.
Yeah, and two teams that are certainly still in that college football race for the potential 5 teams from the SEC. What? Who said that? Let's move on to number 3, Texas A&M at number 20, LSU. Texas A&M road favorites in this game at night at LSU. Super fun environment here. I'm actually going to stick with that LSU team total script there, Mike. We're going to run the ball with LSU team total over 22.5. We have them projected for 30 points here. They're in desperation mode. If you look at Texas A&M on the road, they're allowing like 40 plus points in the road games this season, especially against teams with a pulse here too. So this is a tricky spread to me, but I do think at the end of the day, we will be able to get points from LSU. And they are also 12-2 against the spread versus Texas A&M since 2000, if anyone's looking to take the LSU spread, but 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games versus ranked conference opponents, which helps your point, Emory Hunt, about taking Texas A&M.
Exactly. You look at Texas A&M and how they're running the football, man, they are legitimately looking like old school Texas A&M with the run game on one side and the wrecking crew on defense on the other side. So to me, the balance that they have and the growth and progression that we've seen this year from Marcel Reed at quarterback is helped balance out this offense. So therefore, they are already in a great spot to go and take care of business down there in Baton Rouge. And you're right, everything is coming up LSU. Road game, night game, or home game, night game, white jerseys, all of that stuff. It near Halloween. We know things get crazy down there in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge in particular, near Halloween. But the football side of things, it screams Texas A&M. And it depends on how LSU loses this game, or if they lose, but how they lose could determine what we see from Brian Kelly. So they have to be competitive. They have to hit your team total over the point total, because if they get blown out by A&M, which I think is very much possible, it could be curtains for Brian Kelly.
You know, you mentioned the white jerseys. Those are nice. Those are really nice, and I didn't even know that was a factor here. But I like my team total even more now. I'm isolating LSU here. Mike, you're looking at the full game over.
Yeah, give me the full game over, particularly at 47.5 here. Again, to me, this game, like, it 27-23. That's the final score of this game in like 90% of outcomes, one way or the other. We know that both of these teams could go up into the 30s on their own. I just don't think we get that performance from LSU where you just land on 14 points in this game. And to me, the number should be 49.5 here, at least capturing the scenario of 48-49. So it's got to be an overlook here. It's Death Valley at night. It's going to be competitive, in my opinion, and they're going to see points. You typically do in this spot. An absolute must-win game for LSU.
Yeah, desperation mode for this team. Let's get a shootout. Why not? 7:30p, a nice SEC game. I'd love to see some points on the board. That wraps up just about all of our Power 4 conference best bets. We are going to head into our best bets overall of the slate and maybe some underdogs as well you'll want to sprinkle on. Stick around after the break. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football's Pick Show. We are wrapping up this hour with our favorite bets overall and some underdog bets as well. So let's take a quick look at last week before we get into this week with our best bets here. Our two gentlemen here, Emory and Mike McClure, going 2-0 last week. 9-7 overall for Emory, 9-6-1 for Mike, but plus money on the units, plus 1.5 units for Emory, plus 6.6 over there for Mike McClure. Tom goes 0-2, but he's not here to defend himself, so we're not going to say anything mean. Let's move on to our best bets for week 9 here. You both went 2-0, so I guess there's no one really to start with specifically, but Emory, I'm going to give you the floor.
How about we start out west and work our way east? So we're going to start with Fresno State, San Diego State. Fresno State quarterback E.J. Warner has a turnover problem in terms of interceptions. And when you're facing the number one defense in the Mountain West Conference in San Diego State, they can get pressure on the quarterback a lot and also get off the field on third down often and also turn the ball over at a high clip. That's not what you want to hear if you're Fresno State. So I will lay the points with the Aztecs in this ball game. They are looking like a team that needs to be in that discussion for that G5 representative. Now, when we look at Indiana taking on UCLA, what's fascinating about this, when I first saw the point spread, I was like, dang, that's a lot of points. Then you realize UCLA now has some fight in them. So 25.5 points versus this juggernaut of Indiana ball club that's playing great. There's never going to be a letdown spot because everybody's waiting for them to be let down, but Kirk Cignetti won't allow that to happen. But they'll be in a competitive game here against UCLA coming out east and taking on this Hoosier team in Bloomington. So I like this one plus the points. Give me UCLA plus the points to keep this one under that number.
Yeah, this one reeks of a backdoor cover in the fourth quarter. Close your eyes until that fourth quarter, and this is a very, very large spread. Mike, I see you're going back to the SEC again for your best bets. This seems to be a trend, but a trend that's working for you, so I'm going to let you keep going.
Yeah, love the SEC, Kens. We already talked about Ole Miss. Just the market at 5.5 currently. I'm going to pay to find out in this spot. I am well aware that Oklahoma has the best defense in college football. You have no arguments there from me. I just don't know that they're that good offensively. And you talk about Ole Miss, a team that still has the ability to go score the football. They surprise you with pace. They're very good at making these games competitive. The problem is Lane Kiffin tends to not win the game and walk away with the win. The good news at 5.5, I'm not asking you to do that. This number should be closer to a field goal at 3. If they had hung on and beat Georgia last week, I think you would have seen the markets at 2.5. I just think it's a big spot. That was a game they could afford to lose. Now they need to go out and win this game. I don't know if they get it done, but at 5.5, Oklahoma's offense not good enough here. So give me Ole Miss plus the points. And then Alabama. Been on this Alabama team quite a bit of late. Like them again here against South Carolina. South Carolina, this version of South Carolina gets far too much respect for how good they have been in this conference over maybe the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? This team is outside of the top 100 in terms of net EPA per play. Alabama solidly in this one. You look at what happened to South Carolina last week, a very similar result here. I'm talking blowout type material from Bama. I'm going to isolate the first half though, -6.5. They're going to be up by at least a touchdown at the break. I think a bad outcome for Alabama would only having a 7-point lead at halftime in this particular matchup. So give me Bama first half -6.5.
Yeah, make no mistake, one thing about me and Mike is we will be trying to make our money in the first quarter or the first half. That's where I like to live in these college football bets. I'm going to SMU in the first half minus the 2.5 because you see 3.5 for the game. I just like that we can get under that field goal in the first half. And I do think they control this game, the whole entire game, but you might as well just get in and get out with that 2.5 here. Again, this Wake Forest team, they've literally just played back-to-back games with people that fired their or teams that have fired their coach. Like, I just do not think this is a good football program. The Ponies getting back into stride here. I do think they're starting to put one foot in front of the other, and I just think this is a good team to honestly beat up on. Again, our model has them winning this game by 12 points. Then we're going to go back to the SEC, LSU team total over 22.5. Like you said, Mike, only thing that really cashed for them last week. They're going to have to cash this again. 4 style points for a win here against Texas A&M. They're at home. They're at night. Now I know they're wearing white jerseys. Love to hear that. And again, is Texas A&M defense allowing 40-plus points in each of their road games this season. So I'm not asking for 40, I'm asking for 23, and I feel like that's a very reasonable spot to be. So those are my 2 best bets filling in for Tom here. Tail at your own risk. Let's move on to some underdogs here after we do a quick recap of our best bets. We all brought 2 to the table. We're looking to win all of them. Mike with Ole Miss plus the 5.5. Bama first half -6.5 at South Carolina. Emory going San Diego State minus the 2.5 at Fresno State. And UCLA plus the 25.5 at Indiana. I'm taking the Ponies first half -2.5 versus Wake Forest. And LSU team total over 22.5. Let's end with some fun. Let's get weird. We're going to pick some outright underdogs. It has to be plus 150 or higher to qualify. And I'm squeaking over that plus 150. I'm taking Ole Miss money line plus 160. The fact that we can get this team at this price, the fact that we can get them as 5.5-point dogs as a ranked team, that's still, hand up, a good football team. And that's coming from a Georgia Bulldog. Like, I still think this is an awesome offense. Oklahoma's offense, as you mentioned, Mike, John Mateer, not 100% himself. While it is admirable what he has been doing and playing through, I just don't think we're getting peak Oklahoma football right now. So the fact that I can get Ole Miss money line at plus chicken, I'm going to take that. Emory, you have a bigger plus money line underdog for us.
Plus 270. And again, I know I'm a former Raging Cajun football alum. I know I have Raging Cajun paraphernalia behind me. I know I have a Raging Cajun vintage throwback sweatshirt on as well. But hear me out. This is a straight unbiased pick. I'm looking at how my Cajuns played JMU last week. I fully thought that JMU was going to blow the doors off the Raging Cajuns. I said that quietly. I didn't say it on no parts of the Columbia broadcast station. But when I looked at the game, I'm like, wow, this defense is playing great. They're playing outstanding. And quiet as kept, they've played great defense the last two losses versus Southern Miss, who's really good, and JMU. So I can foresee the future from the trees here. I am going to say my Cajuns, not only plus 9.5 versus Troy, they're going to go out there to Alabama and beat them outright. So trust the Cajuns against the Trojans, plus 270.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it for the Raging Cajuns. Make no mistake, Emory's not always coming on here talking about Louisiana football, so I respect him when it just picks the right spot, believes in his team. I will not be upset with you for that. Plus 270 the money line is for Louisiana at Troy. Mike, I verbally laughed out loud when I read this play in the break. Awesome play. We haven't touched first quarter money line dogs yet, but you have now let that enter the chat.
Yeah, let's go first quarter money line. Now, keep in mind, in this first quarter at a tie, your bet is refunded. It is a push. You're not making as much risk in that spot. UCLA plus 420 to win the first quarter at Indiana. Indiana has actually started slow a few times this season and then really poured it on in the second, third, and fourth quarter. UCLA, though, they're a team that's got some motivation. I like Emory's play at plus 25.5. I bet on them twice in a row, once to cover and then once as an outright. I think that this team is not as bad as they showed on paper over the first few weeks. They still got a talented starting quarterback. They've still got an offense that can go out there and score a touchdown. That's essentially what I'm asking for here, is just score points in the first quarter of this game. Plus 420, I think, is a very friendly number. I don't think they're live to win outright for the entire game, but I do think that they are live to have a lead at the end of the first quarter here at plus 420.
Why not the Bruins, man? First quarter, but why not them? Plus 420 first quarter, the first of the season in week 9. We're starting to get creative. Let's take a quick recap of our underdogs here. Mike on the first quarter UCLA, Emory on his Raging Cajuns plus 270, and I am on the Ole Miss moneyline plus 160. Gentlemen, as always, it has been a pleasure. We have covered plenty of college football to get you locked in early before Saturday's slate and Friday's slate. And if you want to hear more from myself, from Emory, from Mike, you can hear us on the Early Edge Daily SportsLine Betting Podcast. You can find that on Apple. You can find that on Spotify, or listen and watch on YouTube every morning, 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. This is the Early Edge College Football Pick Show on CBS Sports Network, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary.